Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and by popular demand, we are bringing back music read-alikes with fan favorites Rachel Harrison and Agatha Andrews. Welcome back.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
It's
Thank you
what the
for
people demanded.
having us back. The people demanded, or we were just like looking for an excuse to hang out again.
It can be more than one thing.
It's both. Why not both?
Why not both? Okay, well, to start off, maybe we should talk about what our music, what our bands are that we picked this time around. I'll start. I decided on quintessential millennial band,
I love it.
Death Cab for Cutie.
So good. So good. That pleased me so much. And I'm old, and that made me happy. I picked Blondie because I'm in a mood.
It's a vibe. Like
Yes, my Gen X heart was in a mood, and so I picked Blondie.
perfect.
And I guess this is sort of another millennial pick. I went with Arctic Monkeys.
Perfect.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I picked Death Cab for Cutie. I was obsessed with them in high school. I feel like as a lot of people were. I truly feel like in the 2000s, if you saw like a guy who had like a sensitive or artistic vibe vaguely at all, like he was listening to Death Cab for Cutie. Like it was just like ubiquitous. They were everywhere.
Yeah. Do y'all remember the phase of dating guys who like tried to woo you with a guitar? Because I was dating.
Phase. Is that a phase or is that just life?
I was dating one of those, as you do, at the time that Plans came out.
Yeah.
And he had a perfect pitch with Ben Gibbard, so he milked that for everything it was worth. Those were the days, man.
What did he play? Was it like Soul Meets Body? I'll Follow You Into the Dark?
The whole thing, like anytime,
Perfect.
like he could just play, because he was also actually really good, and so he could just play anything by ear. He just had to hear it once, and so yeah. But he'd throw that in with some Beatles and drink his wine.
My gosh, I saw Death Cab for Cutie 3 years ago
Oh
when they
wow.
released a new album, and there was a couple like right in front of me that when they played "I Will Follow You Into the Dark," they just like held each other and like stared into each other's eyes for the entirety of the song. And I was like,
Too much.
it's like I'm
Too much.
interrupted. I'm interrupting
No.
something
See,
here.
I'm like, that could either be very romantic, and I'm just like, nah.
No.
No, to them, very romantic. To me, I'm like, I
Mm.
feel weird. I'm in a public space, and I feel like weird.
No, that's the couple no one wants to be around. I guarantee it.
Oh man, and then it affects like your interaction with the show, because that's all you're looking at instead of the band. Yeah.
But it was so good. That was a bucket list show for me because, like I told you guys, I was obsessed with them. I feel like the way that barstool frat guys feel about like Creed's Higher, where
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
a religious experience. That's how I felt hearing like Ben Gibbard be like, "Ba ba." I was like, yes, we're in church.
Yeah. Those were good times. And yeah, like I told you, don't tell Zoe that I still like them. Zoe Deschanel.
Oh,
She's married to a property brother. She's too far gone. Like,
it's funny, yeah, because it's like no one knows what goes on in relationships besides the people in relationships, but it truly was like, no, not the indie couple.
I know, it was a full moment those years of their relationship, their marriage.
As you can imagine, all the Death Cab for Cutie songs I pick are severely depressing because that's just the mood we were in. That is just like what we were vibing to. Okay. Like I was listening to these and I felt the weight of my heavy side bangs. Like it took me back.
weight of the world in those side bangs.
I could only see the world out of my left eye for years.
I mentioned this before we started recording, but I was listening to the songs you picked before we recorded, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it through them. And I think I could handle Death Cab when I was a teenager because the stakes of my problems were pretty low. And now the stakes of the world are so high, I can't handle it. I'm
Yeah.
like, like, this is too much.
I'm honestly in that place with fiction. Like that's why people are seeing on my She Wore Black page like a little bit more like cozy fantasy or cozy mystery, or just even just regular mystery is still less daunting to me than a lot of horror. Like I have limits. I have limits.
So, Agatha, what's your relationship to Blondie?
I can reach back into my youth to pull out Blondie memory. We do with Blondie what they do with Mazzy Star, and we call the lead singer by that name, but her name is actually Debbie Harry. Just like Mazzy Star is Hope Sandoval. They were active from 1975 to 1982, so I do remember them. I was born in 73, and I had very young parents who were listening to all the cool jams. But I always remember like dancing around Friday night videos in my living room, because before MTV we watched Friday night videos on Friday night, and so, and yeah, no, I always really enjoyed the mix of like punk and disco and pop, and like the band could not be defined into one thing really. I mean, they were called new wave just because, sort of like the way a lot of alternative is just a lot of different things, but it's called alternative because what else do you call it? That's a new wave did a little bit of that. And yeah, no, I'm in a mood. I needed to jam to somebody who still holds up, who's going to take me out of this funk that you get from scrolling on your phone and looking at life and reality. And I'm like, I need a moment. And sometimes that moment will be delivered in Rapture, where I imagine running around eating brains and heads like a zombie of some of these jerks who need to just go far, far away. But I will not be picking Rapture in my list today. So, but there's my Rapture shout out.
I love it.
Blondie was like, they had hits, just hit
Yeah.
after hit.
Yeah. The Best of Blondie came out in 1981, y'all. And so that's just wild to me because I feel like it should be later because the songs were so cool and ahead of their time. So it's just wild to me when I think about that it was 1981 when The Best of Blondie came out. They had already had all these albums and everything. Broke up in 1982. One of the band members that she was dating got really sick, and she took care of him for a while. He's still here. They're still jamming. So
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about when my journey with Arctic Monkeys, because I've been a huge fan for a really long time, and like I was thinking about like, in the early aughts there was like the Hives and the Vines and like the Strokes all came out, and like I was really into that scene. And then for some reason I knew Arctic Monkeys came after that, but I just sort of like placed it closer. But I'm pretty sure the first song I heard by them was I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor from their 2006 album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, which is like a great album title. Get that tattooed on my forehead. But I it must have been like an MTV eating my cereal before school discovery. And then yeah, I really love Favorite Worst Nightmare. And then AM, which is arguably their biggest album, came out when I was like in my early 20s running around New York City. So like of course I was a huge fan. And
yeah, perfect.
That was like the ideal place to be for that album release.
yes, like just like angsty and do I want to know why do you always call me when you're high? Like just perfect. And I I really love their new stuff too, which like their new stuff is kind of, they have this big mainstream album in AM, and I feel like we'll get to it later, but like if they waited a couple years, I think 5 years, and then they released this sci-fi concept album, and everyone was like, "What the fuck?" And I love it so much. And yeah, I really really love the band. I really love Alex Turner. He's a character. He's like, I think one of the last great rock stars.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited because I feel like I was thinking of a band that would have songs that would fit with dark books, horror fiction, and I was like, oh yeah, Arctic Monkeys, 100%. It's just like a total vibe.
I love the swagger.
Oh my god.
I love the swagger. I mean,
There's a there's a clip of Alex Turner accepting an award, and after he goes, I guess invoice me for the microphone, and then he reaches out and drops the mic.
oh gosh, I love the swagger.
Oh
Sir,
my god.
Yes.
I gotta remember, yeah, when I heard about them, but I remember having Fluorescent Adolescent on my iPod. Like that was on repeat. I loved Fluorescent Adolescent. And then I think honestly after that, I mostly just knew them from their singles. And I told you I was obsessed with Alexa Chung. She was like my fashion idol. And I knew that she dated Alex Turner.
yeah, they had a total like Tumblr era
Ugh.
like relationship, and I sent you both the love note that he
Yeah.
wrote to
Yes.
her, which like I can't stop thinking about your lips since I kissed them, or it's just like a very
Ugh.
very Tumblr, like very of that era.
But you know, a man who writes in pen and paper is like, we need more of that. That's more romantic to me than the couple that you were referring to earlier, Stephanie. Like, I've actually written it down. It's not just texted or, you know.
And just something about like not like when you die I'll follow you into the dark. Like that's more just like, isn't it cool to be alive and making out?
Yeah.
Versus, like,
It is indeed cool.
But listen, ninth grade me, if you ask me what the height of romance was,
yeah.
I will follow you into the
Yeah,
dark.
because
would have
death
been
is
it.
so far away when you're
Yeah.
14. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, that's romantic. Now,
Well, and
you
it's
know,
also
on this
very
side of 30, it's like, I don't want to think about it. I'm going to take my vitamins and that's it.
Listen, if you go first, like I'll wait my few years. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
let me have my widow era.
Like,
in my
we
widow
still have
era.
to execute our wills. Like,
It's also very Poe though. Like Poe is all like it's the same thing, same vibe.
don't you just get Klinger vibes though? You know, like
Zoe is dating or is married to or whatever a property brother, as you said. She
she
has
has
moved on.
nightmare taste in men. I'm sorry.
I know.
Sorry,
Oh
I
my
took us
gosh.
off the rail.
No.
But isn't that what we do? Like that's our
Yeah,
dynamic, right?
that's what we do. When I was brainstorming this, I was trying to figure out like which albums I wanted to do because I wanted to do a variety, and Kintsugi was the Zoe Deschanel divorce album,
Ah,
and that's like funny to listen to. I was gonna do Black Sun because that's my favorite song from there, but yeah, it's just funny to listen back to it. It's like how could something so fair be so cruel?
yeah.
Somebody check on the property brother.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, looking back on it because it seems to have really come from, obviously, outside looking in, from her getting New Girl. Like, the opening song on that album is called, like, No Room in the Frame, and it's like, "Oh,
Oh.
like, you're the center of attention now, and there's not room for me in the frame."
You know who else I also like from that same era that I think like, you know, people might confuse if you don't know who they are, but like the Decemberists. And
Mhm.
it's so funny because those songs are so dark, but if you follow like his Instagram, he's the most cheerful guy and they're in a long and happy marriage like for decades now and he's all about being a dad and like they're just it's a totally different vibe behind the scenes and I just feel like Ben tries to live the life. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Do we want to get into our picks? Stephanie,
think
do you want to kick us off with your first
Yeah.
Death Cab read alike?
I will bring the mood down, sorry, as I said I would. Because I am starting us off with What Sarah Said, which is from Plans 2005. And I am pairing this with The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias.
Oh.
This song opens up with the lyrics, and it came to me then that every plan is a tiny prayer to Father Time as I stared at my shoes in the ICU that reeked of piss and 409. This whole song is about being in a hospital waiting room and waiting to hear news as to like whether your loved one has died. I felt like I obviously needed to pair this up with a grief horror novel. And I feel like a lot of grief horror novels feature like sudden death, not like someone wasting away in a hospital. And so I felt like The Devil Takes You Home fit that because we start off with his daughter getting diagnosed with cancer and it being this long process that eventually ends with their daughter dying, with them under a mountain of medical debt and the repercussions of that tearing his marriage apart. So just this ruins his life. And this protagonist takes on kind of like one last job as a like maybe this is going to be the thing that gets everything on track. And he goes on this journey to take this cartel's money. You don't know who you can trust. There's like supernatural elements. This book like tore my heart out. Like I mean, it opens up with his daughter dying of cancer, so your heart's already like
Yeah.
ripped out when you're starting the book, and then at the ending, I was like, I didn't know I had heart left to be broken, but whatever was left is broken now. If you've read the book, the final chapter, I truly felt embodies the ending of the song, which is but I'm just thinking of what Sarah said, that love is watching someone die. And then the song ends as he just says 3 times, so who's going to watch you die? So who's going to watch you die? And I just picture that as I picture the last the ending of this book. So yeah, like lovely fun pairing to start us off. I don't know. The one thing I do love about Ted Cat for Cutie is Ben Gibbard's like sense evoking lyrics, like the smell of this hospital, like the sound of the clock, like the tension that everyone's feeling as they're waiting for the nurse to come by and tell them news. And then ending on this like, so who's gonna watch you die?
Well, Ben also sounds like a folk artist. His voice feels very folky, even if the music is not necessarily, but you feel that. And folk music is pretty bleak.
Yeah.
So I think there's like this tradition, if you will.
Yeah. So that is What Sarah Said from Plans and The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias.
That's a perfect pairing.
It is indeed. So, Stephanie, I have for my first one a book to thank you for because it was your recommendation that got me to read The Favorites by Layne Fargo. And I'm comping that with Call Me by Blondie. And I didn't so everything I'm just going to use the best of Blondie of. They were all from individual albums, but I didn't write those down, but you can hear all of these on the best of Blondie. So let's go back to The Favorites. The Favorites is a book in conversation with Wuthering Heights. So when we think of Wuthering Heights, we think of this like passionate love affair that's not always healthy. Okay, so lots of times it's not healthy. But what Layne does is she picks and chooses. Like what I like when a person has a book that's not a retelling but more in conversation with is that they pick the parts they like and change whatever else they want. And so we get a lot of that passion and backstory. You know, the main characters are Kat and Heath, and Heath was also like orphaned and lived in her house. Y'all, this is Wuthering Heights meets ice dancing, competitive elite ice dancing. And so and she set it in that world, and I think it's a super compelling approach. I would never like, who thinks of these things, you know, to pair those things together. And I really like the pace of the read, but then she also describes like a lot of their routines and how sexy they were and how people were, you know, captivated by them. And she did base it on a couple. I don't remember what couple that would do ice dancing. But it was also like, it was saucy ice dancing. I can see twizzles happening to Call Me. But also like the lyrics are very, you know, call me on the line, call me anytime. I'll arrive. You can call me any day or night. Cover me with kisses, baby. Cover me with love. Roll me in designer sheets. I'll never get enough. Emotions come. I don't know why. Cover up love's alibi. And then later she's, you know, doing the call me thing again. She's like, when you're ready, we can share the wine. And I just, if it just keeps kind of going with the same tone throughout the song. And I just feel like between the passion that's conveyed in the song and the pace of the song, I just think it would serve really well the favorites because of the story, but also because I really want to see them do a routine to the song.
Yeah. Oh my God. I need a favorites adaptation. ASAP.
Bad. Like
Um,
now.
yeah.
They should have come out
The
simultaneously.
series we can binge. Yeah.
Yeah. I can absolutely see it too. And like a big part of the book is their public perception as a couple, like their ups
Yes.
and downs. And so people are invested in like their performances and their
It's a
song
soap opera.
choices. Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for recommending that book. I read it on your recommendation, Stephanie.
I'm so glad you liked it. I binged it.
Binged it.
Yeah, it was
so
I
good.
picked it on a whim. It was one of the like Libro FM ALCs for the month, and I was like, that looks fun. And I was
Yeah.
like, I could not do anything for like 2 days. And I was like, I
The,
need to find things to clean. I need to find things to keep listening to this audiobook.
the audiobook is so good because it's a cast. And I love that one of the characters is based on Johnny Weir. And she was like, can we get Johnny Weir to read that? And he did. And oh my God, it's spectacular.
Perfect.
I love it.
I love that you did that. Like, I think pacing is something that I don't often think about with read alikes, but pacing is such an like important part of a novel and the experience of reading a novel. And I love like an upbeat sound. Like that's
Yeah.
also like Call Me is such a like
Yeah.
intense,
Yeah.
sexy, like punchy song.
Ooh, yeah.
So, love that pick.
Oh, thank you.
My first pick, I feel like I had to start with AM because I love AM. Everyone loves AM. I think it's a perfect album, banger after banger. Like I said, I was in my early 20s living in Brooklyn when this album came out. So, of course,
Fantastic.
I was obsessed. I feel like again, love every song on this album, but Knee Socks just has like such a like gothic vibe to it, and the chorus almost sounds like a nursery rhyme, like London Bridge is falling down, ring around the rosy. Like something about the cadence and the repetition just reminds me. It's just like almost like a sinister nursery rhyme. So I decided to listen to that track and just see what came to me, and I thought of House of Beth by Kerry Cullen, which is not out yet. It's out July 15th from Simon and Schuster. Um, the lyrics of Knee Socks are a little bit sexy, a little bit angsty. Nights are drawn out long, kissing to cut through the gloom. And House of Beth is about a young woman named Cassie who lives in New York City. She works in publishing. She has a girlfriend who she's like totally in love with. But Cassie has pretty severe harm OCD. So she has cyclical thoughts about harming the people in her life and also anxiety about like having done bad things she knows she hasn't done, but like she thinks about doing them. Like it's very debilitating thing, harm OCD. And her anxiety ultimately leads her to kind of blow up her life in the city. And she moves back to her hometown in New Jersey. And while she's there, she reconnects with her childhood friend Eli. And Eli is reeling from the mysterious recent loss of his wife, Beth. And so he is now a single parent of two young children. And Cassie and Eli, the relationship escalates pretty quickly. And soon Cassie kind of finds herself living out Beth's old life. And Beth might have some things to say about that. I don't want to give.
I am intrigued. Oh my gosh.
Oh, Agatha, you love this book. I don't want to give too much away, but it's beautifully written. And like Knee Socks, it's a little bit, has that like sexiness, it has that like angst, and it's also a little bit spooky, especially the lyrics in Knee Socks. The late afternoon, the ghost in your room that you always thought didn't approve of you knocking boots. And so just this like sense of like a ghost watching the novel. I would say like it's like almost a contemporary twist on Rebecca, but it's
I was
more,
going to say.
Yeah.
it's a little bit more nuanced and surprising. Like,
Okay.
and I wouldn't say there are definitely some creepy moments. I would say like I have a tricky time recommending books as like horror books because I feel like that gives people a certain expectation of the level of fear that they're going to feel. This is more of a like dread, mysterious, like if you're looking for jump scares, you're not going to find it in this book. But if you're looking to like simmer in dread and like you're like, what is going on? And that kind of like nuance of like, I feel like something fucked up is afoot, but I don't know what it is. So yes, it's not out until July 15th, but if you like the song, I think you should pre-order House of Beth by Kerry Cullen.
I'm writing this down. I know you're going to put links, but I want to look at it immediately after we're
The
done.
cover is amazing. It's like bloody berries and yeah. Agatha, I think you would. It's just very gothic. The book, it's very contemporary gothic.
Oh my gosh, I'm in.
Obsessed. I remember you talking about this earlier, and it immediately went on my radar. It's like,
yeah, I mean, just beautifully written, and again, just like a kind of relatable protagonist who's kind of lost in time, lost in space, like doesn't really know what she's doing, and kind of tumbles into somebody else's life, and it's just like, wait a second.
I like that something fucked up is afoot.
Yeah. There's some sort of fuckery afoot, and you
don't
know what it is.
That's the full quote for the episode.
Fuckery afoot.
My next book pick is American Rapture by CJ Leede, and I wanted to do this with 2 songs because I really wanted to do Soul Meets Body, which is also from Plans. But I wanted to include a different album. And I feel like this song pairs really well with a song we were talking about earlier, which is I Will Follow You Into the Dark from Transatlanticism. I cannot explain to you the pull that Soul Meets Body had on me as a teenager. I wrote the lyrics in my head. There's a Greyhound station where I set my thoughts to far off destinations so they may have a chance of finding a place where they're far more suited than here. Just the teen angst of like, I don't belong here. There are better things for me out there was my vibe. I wrote it on like my shoes. I wrote it on my folders.
Sharpie
like,
on your sneakers.
I did. Yeah, on my Vans, like all around. That's what it said.
You're so cool.
I was not.
No, but that's so cool.
So I picked American Rapture because it is about a girl named Sophie who is a sheltered Catholic girl. And I would say like even more sheltered than the normal Catholic girls at her school. Like her parents are extra fundamentalist and do not allow her to have like secular music or movies. And so she like truly doesn't have any grasp on the outside world. And then before the book even starts, we know that her brother was sent away when they found out he was gay to like a conversion, like, wellness center. Then in the book, there is an outbreak that, to simplify it, it turns people into sex zombies. Like it just becomes this like violent outbreak. And Sophie finds herself on the run. She meets up with a group of survivors. And so she's kind of like for the first time out in this big world and experiencing it's kind of a coming of age story for her as the world is kind of falling apart. And part of that coming of age for her is this like sexual awakening that's already in this extremely confusing time where there's an evil sex virus and someone who grew up in purity culture and already has like a big distrust around sexuality and her body. And, as someone who talks about coming out of, religious deconstruction a lot, I feel like this coming out of it, having like a soul meets body moment is part of it, like feeling present in your body, connecting those two things that had been like very separated is a big part of that coming of age, coming into yourself journey. But also there is like a little bit of romance on there.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like the hand in hand, we will take this on. And I felt like that also went really well into like, I will follow you into the dark. Like, I'm not scared of how like we are in this together type of thing. And I also wanted to shout out Brian McCauley's Candy Cane Kills Again, because there is a I Will Follow You Into the Dark reference in there,
nice.
if you catch it.
Go figure.
Clocked.
I haven't read American Rapture, but what you're describing to me sounds like V. Castro's Goddess of Filth too.
A little
Um,
bit, yeah.
yeah, so it's just amazing, like the whole this conflict has within us as artists and I guess just humans, you know.
I'll also say American Rapture like is a good pick for a Death Cab because that book made me sob. I was sobbing on my
Oh.
couch for the last like 50 pages of that book, just like ugly crying, like just like emotional devastation. I mean, in the best way possible.
Mhm.
Like you just feel so deeply for these characters and become so emotionally invested. But like, I was messed up for like days after reading that book because like of the like, I felt so connected to the characters that their loss like carried with me, and I had to
Mhm.
like I cared like the body keeps the score. Like I was like walking around feeling that heavy weight of devastation and loss. And I just think she did something so profound with that
Yeah.
book. Yeah. So if you want to cry, listen to Death Cab and read American Rapture. Cry in a good way.
I don't know if CJ's a Death Cab fan, but I think she would appreciate it.
Oh,
I
I
think so.
think so. Yeah.
Yes, that is Soul Meets Body, and I Will Follow You into the Dark with American Rapture by CJ Leede.
Good pick. And I do think she would appreciate that. I can't wait to hear her response to it. So, my next one is a Heart of Glass to a Rachel Harrison comp. So I don't know if you want to hear or if you want to shut your ears.
I want to hear. I mean, Heart of Glass. Yeah, I'll take the Blondie comp any day of
Right?
the week.
Can I just say, and I meant to say this earlier when we picked, but I just love that no one wears a Barbie slipper like Debbie Harry either. She wears a fantastic Barbie slipper here. And her fashion in the video is always impeccable, and it's impeccable here. So, there's that. But that's not why I picked it, but it's just a bonus. So, with Heart of Glass, the song is about a broken heart in the context, of course, right? I know we're doing a little bit of that today, but in the context of something that you thought was once blissful, and as time goes on, you realize, oh, there's, you know, what was it, Rachel? Fuckery afoot.
Fuckery afoot, yes.
And I'm comping this with Cackle because Annie does have a breakup that lingers. I mean, it just lingers. And I think that's what's happening in the song as well. Like it's a slow realization that something you thought was perfect wasn't perfect. So the lyrics are once I had a love and it was a gas, soon turned out it had a heart of glass. Seemed like the real thing, only to find mucho mistrust, love's gone blind. Once I had a love and it was divine, soon found out I was losing my mind. It seemed like the real thing that I was so blind, mucho mistrust. And then but what I find is pleasing and I'm feeling fine. Love is so confusing. There's no peace of mind. If I fear I'm losing you, it's just no good. You teasing like you do. Because I think the ex-boyfriend in Cackle also kept stringing her along with intention. And so I like that she kind of talks about that in the lyrics too. Um, so, Cackle is, I mean, you want to explain it or you want me to explain it?
You explain it. Like I said before, like my early works, I'm like, what did I don't remember.
Well, so Cackle is a character who does have a breakup and moves to a very Gilmore Girls esque town. And, she isn't with dealing with heartbreak, but she's trying to reestablish herself. But it is hard when you have these things like it was a long relationship too. When you end a really long relationship, there's a lot of reflection on something that you thought it was a certain way, and then you start slowly realizing that it wasn't. In the meantime, while she's dealing with all of that and someone that's helping her kind of figure this out, she meets Sophie, someone who is locals are a little skittish about because maybe she's kind of there's something about her. Is she witchy? Is she what's her deal? um and so, but it I love the build of dread in this one as well because it's not jump scary. confusing as far as like, what is this happening? Do I think, is this the way I think it is? And so it dives into female friendships too. And so I think she takes what she learned from her romantic relationship and applies it also to female friendships, because you can become interested in what someone's doing, but it's upon reflection. Is it all the good things that I thought it was? That kind of thing. So, I don't know if that's a good description. I hope
Yeah,
not
and
doing a disservice to the book.
no, not at all. And I think like Annie is very sensitive and
Yeah.
has a heart of glass. Like I always joke, like Annie is very closely based on me, especially who I was in my 20s. And I always say like I'm made of glass. I'm very fragile. Like I think, and being in a vulnerable position as she is, at the beginning of that book, I think it's a great comp. But it's also like again, like thinking about like something not obvious about music, like, the pace of a song or like the tone of Heart of Glass. I think the tone of Heart of Glass like just fits so perfectly with Cackle, because it's like the lyrics are a little bit not like dark, but a little bit more pointed than if you weren't, we talked about this with gosh, why can't I remember the band that you picked?
Blind Melon?
Blind Melon, yeah. Where it's like you listen and you're like, la la la, and then you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what are they saying? And I feel like Heart of Glass is kind of like that too.
Oh yeah.
And Cackle is like more whimsical. And so I think like tonally, it's such a good fit.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because actually that's one of the appeals for me with Blondie, because if you look at a lot of her lyrics, whether it was, I mean, even the one I have coming up, and then like Rapture and lots of these other ones, there's like an underlying, like there's a sinister nature that is underlying, and it's also a build. Like my Final Girls song, it's catchy, it's fun, it feels like you're dancing or whatever, but it is creepy if you listen to the lyrics. And she'll slip something in at the end sometimes with these songs that also is like, ooh, she's got a punch to it. Let me see if this one has one of those. I guess just get that out. Adorable illusion, and I cannot hide, I'm the one you're using, please don't push me aside. Like she's definitely does that, I think, in most of her songs. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I was gonna say, I actually love that also about your pick, Stephanie, for your band, because there are times where it feels like a bop, and then you pay attention, you're like, you're crushed.
Uh,
Yeah, tone. Oh, and the other thing is Blondie's voice, I think, is very ethereal, which I think is also very perfect for Cackle.
yeah, Sophie totally listens to Blondie.
Yeah, she does.
You
Of
heard it
course
here
she
first.
does.
I can say that. I'm like, guess what? I wrote that book. I can make statements like that.
Someone update the Wikipedia page
Yeah.
now. It is canon.
Great pick. I mean, I'm biased, but I'm like, wow, what a wonderful choice.
The best choice.
I must say, I don't tell them to pick my books.
Look, man, you write a lot of books, and so it just works.
I just vaguely threaten them. Like that's it.
Fine, you can't see the knife she's holding.
My next pick is, it's been really fun. One of my favorite parts about doing this episode, like these episodes, aside from hanging out with you both, is like having the excuse to like really appreciate a band that you liked, but like, and I listen to Arctic Monkeys all the time, but and I did this with Japanese breakfast too, to like really sit down and appreciate and like revisit why you connect with their music so much. And I really wanted to do the song "If You Were There, Beware" off of Favorite Worst Nightmare. It's a very brooding song. And Favorite Worst Nightmare came out in spring 2007, so my senior year of high school. It's the band's second album, which I was kind of surprised, because in my head it came out like later. And I always like switch that one up with Humbug. But I described the sound as like alt rock, Brit garage band like music.
Yeah.
Not garage band, garage rock music. I'm also like a Blur super fan, so like
Yes.
I feel like there's something in there of like my connection to like my obsession with Blur, to my obsession with Arctic Monkeys. But the band is from Sheffield, so their accents are really strong in their early work, like Fluorescent Adolescent and 505 is also on this album, which I love. But thinking about like the album and the catalog, If You Were There, Beware, I was like, it's such an emotionally raw song. The vocal delivery, the rise and fall of the instrumentals. It opens up with the lyrics, If you were there, beware the serpent soul pinchers. And it goes on to talk about taking innocence and beating the good grace of a sweetheart, vicious ambition. So I was thinking aquatic because of the serpent, and then also coming of age slash loss of innocence, and was like, oh, Chlorine by Jade Song.
Yeah.
Chlorine is about Ren Yu, a competitive high school swimmer who has a lifelong obsession with mermaids. It is a coming of age body horror novel that is not for the faint of heart. Trigger warning for sexual assault. It's a novel about independence and identity and power dynamics and pressure and beauty, and it's heartbreaking and like very cutting, the same way If You Were There, Beware is like heartbreaking and cutting. Like the lyrics in If You Were There, Beware, go on, girl, go on, give us something gruesome. And I'm like, Chlorine gives us something gruesome. Like, I love Chlorine so much. And I love the song so much. And I think they tonally are a good pairing, and lyrically, I think a good fit. But yeah, that's my next one. Chlorine, and If You Were There, Beware.
So good. I also love the Sheffield reference. It just because that is a vibe. Northern England is not the same as like there's more grit, and I think it comes out in bands from Northern England.
Yeah, like, and I think like I don't know, it's very. They have a lot of Sheffield pride.
Yeah. And I'm like, are they Sheffield Wednesday or Sheffield Blades? Because I'm a Premier League fan. But yeah, they have a lot of grit, and I love that. May contribute to the swagger that I love so much about them too. I think when you're artistic in a gritty place, there's some really sexy shit that comes out of that. And I mean, it could be, and I don't just mean that in a sexy way. I mean like sexy, dark, sexy, brooding, sexy, all of that. It's.
We made sure to get all of our Alex Turner thirsting out in the group chat ahead of time.
You sent us some edits. Like, I was like, yeah, absolutely.
I cannot be held responsible for the things that I said in the group chat. But yes.
Can
agree.
anyone?
Can I?
I'm sorry. The AM era, the leather jacket, the cigarette,
The hair, the like swoop, the like very like 1950s greaser, like and just invoice me for the microphone.
And I sent you guys the music video for Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High, and I'm like, I would like to point out that he is texting a Stephanie, so I'm going to believe that it's me.
He was texting me.
Of course he was. Good pick, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right. When we did this last time, I did Lucy Dacus, and I also included a song from her other project, Boy Genius. So I thought I would do the same thing with Death Cab for Cutie and include a song from Ben Gibbard's other project, The Postal Service. And I was going to do my favorite song from Give Up, which is The District Sleeps Alone Tonight. And let me tell you, when I first heard this song, I thought they had reinvented what music was. Just like the electronic bits to this song, the way it opens up with kind of like this hazy feel to it. Like, I was like, this is music, actually. And I wanted to pair this with The Return by One Rachel Harrison.
Me again. The little
Double
knife came out.
It's a vibe in a song that I really liked, and I honestly struggled to find a book that captured that vibe. Like I really did. I like looked through my Goodreads and I'm like, this is a very specific vibe, and that vibe is lyrically in the song. Ben Gibbard had been dating someone long distance, and so it's like the first time he is visiting her in DC. And there's so many like details in the song. Like he says, there's a vinyl sticker with big block letters adhered into my chest. And you tell your new friend, like telling your new friends that I'm not permanent. I'm a visitor here. And I feel so out of context. And I think it's very telling. He says a gaudy apartment complex. In this gaudy apartment complex, but just like that moment
Little catty.
where you're like, yeah, I'm like, I see you, Ben Gibbard. Like, she did well for herself, and you should, whatever. You have feelings about the fact that she's like doing well now, and that, yeah, you know, you had this time apart, and you thought you had this relationship going, but she kind of went and developed a whole other life. Like you're not every aspect of her life. She has new friends now. She lives in a nice apartment complex in Washington, D.C. She has a job. Like she has other things. And like as you're here, you're kind of realizing like, oh, this isn't what it used to be. And what I liked about The Return is I think that was my very first Rachel book. I mean, I think it was your first. It was also your first Rachel book.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that makes sense.
And it's the first track on the album, so there we go.
Yeah. But it is about Elise has this friend named Julie. It's this group of 4 friends. Julie goes missing, and she went on a hike. You know, she got married, she moved into this like Airbnb with her husband, and she went on a hike and went missing for 2 years. And the other 2 friends and even the husband are like, you know, we need to do a service. We need to move on with our life. And Elise is the only one that's like, no, she's still out there. And I love Elise as a character. She was fascinating. Her, like, I think she's living in Buffalo. Is that right? She has an apartment in Buffalo. She has like a weird romance with a professor. She's just a little off, and I don't know, I love my characters to be like a little off and going through some shit, and that is Elise. She's actually correct, because Julie comes back and does not remember what happened to her, but she decides that she wants to round up the girls and have kind of one big girl trip at this like funky hotel that's opened up. And I love the detail and all the like friendships we get. But there are, you know, there is an element of like Elise reevaluating her relationship with Julie and like where they stand now. Like what this means to like keep this friendship as an adult and like the different places you are in life with the different experiences. I was telling you guys the like pop culture moment that I feel fits the District Sleeps Alone Tonight vibe is Gilmore Girls, when after the affair, Rory and Dean try to get back together, and Dean goes to pick her up from her grandparents' house, and they have invited kind of all the suitors in the area. And so Dean pulls up and sees Rory like running around with these like trust fund boys, and he has his like District Sleeps Alone Tonight, like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't fit into this context of your life, and like, why am I trying to make it work?
Perfect. That is the perfect moment.
Notice how when Dean sees it, he's like, I'm just going to remove myself. And when Jess sees it, he's like, dropped out of Yale? This isn't you.
You have to make Yale multiple syllables. Yale.
Dropped out of Yale?
The thing, he saw and he fought for her, and he woke her up and shook her.
Yeah. He was the only one who really knew her. I'm sorry, when I was in high school, I was a Dean girl. I was obsessed with Dean. I loved Dean. And then as an adult, I was like, what is wrong with you? You had terrible judgment. It was Jess.
Jess all along. Yes. Agreed.
I went through a similar thing, and yeah, like watching it back, I get so mad at myself because Dean gets so mad at her for like not saying "I love you," and they have so many stupid petty fights, and I'm just like, what are you thinking?
Also, I don't like Logan,
I don't
but
either.
I think they deserve each other because Rory
Probably.
sucks. Another thing that I realized watching it back was Rory is the worst, and yeah, she belongs with
Yeah.
she belongs in the fate that she has in the reboot.
And Jess belongs with me. So.
Yeah.
I'm in a Gilmore Girls bit posting group, and I'm just there for the memes. Like I contribute nothing. But they say all of these same things in memes, and I'm like amazed at how many different ways they can make a meme. Like, where are y'all pulling all of this out of? But to basically say how much Rory sucks, how great Dean is. I mean, how great
like
Jess is, and how much Dean sucks. And I'm like, it's amazing how many different ways they've found to say these three things.
Also, can I just say, my favorite Lorelai boyfriend was Max Medina.
My favorite was Digger.
I love Digger.
Digger was good too. They were both.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I'm not like a. I like Luke, but I think she would have been better off with one of those.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
Ooh, Skeldon.
Yeah. Or do you ever wonder too about like had they ever expanded out any of the I love our Gilmore Girls tangent, if they had ever expanded out any of the guys she like casually dated, like the one dad who wanted to take her out, like when she first goes to Chilton and she's in the shitty clothes, like I'm sorry, you could pull out a regular pair of jeans to go drop your daughter off. But anyway, or I don't know, just any of the I'm just curious, like what would have happened there? So anyway, that's pointless. Doesn't need to be included.
No, I feel like I needed to like rewatch the show again now, isn't it? Like now that I'm the age. How old was Lorelai in the?
She was like 32.
All right, I'm older now than Lorelai in the pilot, so
yeah,
I'd be curious to rewatch it. But
I did a rewatch at 32. It was wow.
Yeah, watching it at 51 is really something. I'm like, Emily. Because, well, I will say the only thing about the reboot that I liked, and I mentioned this in my cottagecore movie episode. Well, I do love the reboot, like the just moments of the reboot. But I also the only other thing worth watching aside from the just moments would be Emily in her what is it? Coastal grandma phase.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She's really leaning into like the Nancy Myers of it all.
Yeah.
We deserve that as much as Emily does.
Certainly.
So that is The District Sleeps Alone Tonight and The Return.
I feel like Tristan is a dean, but like one male character in The Return. I feel like it's a bit of a dean.
There you go.
A little bit hapless. And I feel like Dean is a little bit more calculated, but
it's so many possibilities. We could do an essay. Speaking of so many possibilities, my next one is an entire episode I could dedicate to book comps to the one song because it's such a common thread with women writers, especially. So the song I'm going to do is Rip Her to Shreds, which Debbie Harry said was about what the media does to people. Honestly, when you look at the lyrics, though, she's specifically saying like what the media does to women. She said it's about how media can destroy lives and how like it's an ongoing attack constantly. And I'll get into that. Again, there's a ton of books I thought about because of the specific lyrics, because they rip women apart on physical appearance and on their lives. And so, the lyrics will go through and attack. So with like the physical appearance, I thought, oh, Youth Juice or Rouge or any of these other books that are about like the beauty industry and everything, or celebrities in that context. And then the lives they live, like that's a whole other set of book. You could do like women on women attacking, like Bunny and other stuff like this. Like there's 1,000 books that you could do, but I'm choosing The Via by Rachel Hawkins because it like the favorites, it's a celebrity story. So the Via, for anybody who hasn't read it, I've mentioned it a few times on my show, but it's been a while. Um, one of my favorite things about Rachel Hawkins, that's one of her names. She writes under two names and does two totally different types of work. So, as Rachel Hawkins, which is her name, she does. She leans into her Gothic graduate degree and does Gothic retellings of things. But again, they're more in conversation, where she pulls the stuff that she wants to have a conversation with from old stories, whether it's Jane Eyre or Agatha Christie, or, this one is not so much a retelling of a book, but it's a retelling of a very Gothic moment, which we all know about the Gothic summer, where Mary Shelley and Lord Byron and Percy Bysshe Shelley all gather together and at a villa and they had some dark and stormy nights, and it was very passionate time in these dark and stormy nights, as they had a contest to decide like who could write the scariest story. We get Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein, we get John Polidori writing the poem that would inspire Bram Stoker to write Dracula. um, all very, I mean, they had sexy times all over that villa. That was very competitive as well as passionate. So you had, like, you had sex, but you also had competition. You had love, but you also had anger and animosity. And so she's like, I think that I'm going to combine this idea. This is Rachel Hawkins. I'm going to combine this idea with Fleetwood Mac.
Nice.
So, and so the Via is the same concept, where a 1970s Fleetwood Mac-esque band spends some time in a villa, and very similarly, it's ego and fame and love and lust and passion and talent, because they're all talented and they're writing music and all of that stuff, and it's told in a way a little bit like The Favorites, where it's reflecting on individual people and their parts of the story, and how we get to, I don't know, not everybody makes it out alive. So because it's a Gothic, you got to do that, right? But it's a reflection, basically, to figure out how you get there. But I just love I was like, this is absolute genius. Just the same way that I think The Favorites is genius mixing Wuthering Heights with Ice Dancing. I think it's genius to mix that famous Gothic summer with Fleetwood Mac
Yeah.
murder. So, it's applies to me whenever I look at the lyrics to Rip Her to Shreds. Um, some of you all may know this song from the beginning of Bridesmaids, as it's the opening credits music. Oh, you know her. Would you look at that hair? Yeah, you know her. Check out those shoes. She looks like she stepped out of the middle of somebody's blues. She looks like the Sunday comics. She thinks she's Brenda Starr. Her nose job is real atomic. All she needs is an old knife scar. Yeah, she's so dull. Come rip her to shreds. She's so dull. Come rip her to shreds. And the rest of the song is attacks like that on on people, on women especially. And the chorus is, yeah, she's so dull, come rip her to shreds. And that's what the characters in this book face. But like I said, there's so many books where this could apply, because it's a reality. I mean, Princess Di didn't die for nothing. Meghan Markle's not facing criticism for nothing. All that kind of stuff. Anyway.
I love that.
I love this song, and I was very inspired to write. I'm like not using this as a plug, but I just like started to speak, and I was like, it's gonna sound pluggy, but like the idea for Play Nice came from Sophie Turner and Joe Jonas were getting divorced, and the media started, like, Joe Jonas kind of started this media attack against Sophie Turner to try and paint her like a bad parent, and everybody said no. It got shut down immediately. Women, everybody was like, no, that's bullshit. Like, she's allowed to like go out to dinner,
Yeah,
even like though she's a parent. And I found that so fascinating because, in the early aughts, when I was, young and impressionable, was like the Britney Spears era, where she was absolutely torn to shreds by the media, every single thing that she did. And also, like, the Britney documentary had just come out, where they revisited like what happened to her, and the fact that like she had 2 kids and with somebody who treated her like garbage and then took her kids from her. And then the media was like, isn't she so crazy? And so to like see that happen and then to see in this content, like it felt there's such little progress.
Yeah.
Like it always feels like like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But to see the progress of had this happened 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everyone would have just been like, oh yeah, Sophie Turner's a horrible mother because she like they would have just bought they would have just bought that narrative and people rejected the narrative. So I think like but it still happens. Like we're not past it, but I love this song. It's such a badass song. I love that like, you know, it's kind of sad that like the song came out, 20 years before what happened to Britney and like Perez Hilton and that whole era. But like, it's just been happening for so long. And I think it's such a relatable song that, yeah, I love it. Love it. And great pick too
with the Via.
Yeah.
I love too that Debbie Harry was so good at being able to PJ Harvey does this too, change the voice to accommodate the narrative of the song. So with Heart of Glass, it's very ethereal, very high pitched. She sounds like an angel while she's talking about heartbreak. And with this one, she leans into the more gritty a bit like the more gritty things that she can do with her voice. And the tone of the song is very gritty because it's meant to hurt, the people that are getting hurled these insults, and it's meant to be like very crass. And she leans into that with the way that she sings the song, and the guys lean into that with the way they play their instruments versus something like Heart of Glass, which feels a little disco. So it's just really interesting too how artists can do that, and I think that's really fun with Rachel Hawkins too, as far as like pulling the elements that she wants to use for the narrative to tell the story. She pulled the parts of that Gothic summer. Layne Fargo pulled the parts of of Wuthering Heights to tell her story with the favorites. I love when artists can do that.
I'm gonna go for my last pick, and I again, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino was the much anticipated follow-up album to the mega popular AM. Fans waited 5 years for this album to drop, and I think many were surprised it was such a departure from the sound of AM, and for like the band's previous work. I will say I did consider, because last time you did the Lucy Dacus Boy Genius, I was like, maybe I should do a Shadow Puppet song because Alex Turner has a side project with Miles. I always want to say Miles Teller, but that's the actor, Miles Kane, called The Last Shadow Puppet, which if you listen to the Shadow Puppets, you can kind of map A to B how they got to Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. So Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino is essentially a science fiction concept album about a swanky hotel on the moon. And I just think it's so funny that like after their like mainstream success, they were like, you know what we're gonna do? Write a sci-fi concept album. I think it's so gutsy to just, in the face of what I'm sure was a lot of pressure to like continue that sound and like build on that mainstream success, was just like, nah, I want to be weird. Like I want to be a total weirdo. And I really admire that in any artist, and like would love to maintain some sense of that for myself, where it's like not feeling pressured to try and do the same thing over and over again if you've had success, to like really lean into what interests you and what makes you special. And like I don't know, this like artwork only could have come out of his brain because it's so specific to him. And I don't know, I just love it so much. And my favorite song on this album is called 4 out of 5. And the title is referring to a rooftop taqueria at this Moon Hotel called the Information Action Ratio. And the Taqueria was well reviewed. It was 4 stars out of 5, which I sing to myself anytime I get tagged in a 4-star review. Keeps it fun, keeps it fresh. Anyway, I feel like this entire album reminds me of the short story collection Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, which I read the translation by Anton Her. But if I had to pick one song, I would go with the track that's called Science Fiction. Cursed Bunny is more of like a speculative fiction collection, I would say. It's not just sci-fi. It's grim, it's absurdist, it's funny, it's imaginative. Every story is like completely different, like a totally wild fable. Like the opening story is called The Head, and it's about a woman who is haunted by a head that lives in her toilet. Which, if you liked The Substance, I think you would appreciate this story. There is a story that I would say is like pretty sci-fi that's called Goodbye, My Love, and it's about a scientist's relationship with one of the androids that she created. The song Science Fiction is sonically very sci-fi. Like it could be the soundtrack in like a 1950s Martian movie. Lyrically, it refers to science fiction in the chorus, I want to stay with you, my love, the way some science fiction does. And then later in the song, Alex Turner is such a cheeky lyricist, and I just like very clever, very profound, like very funny. So I tried to write a song to make you blush, but I've got a feeling that the whole thing may well just end up being too clever for its own good, the way some science fiction does. No, may well just end up too clever for its own good, the way some science fiction does. I don't think Cursed Bunny ends up being too clever for its own good, but it is a very extremely clever collection that doesn't spoon feed the reader anything. It's sort of just like, here's how shitty and dark the world is. But I think what made me choose this song is the like self-awareness and the levying of the genre to make a sharp point. The song mentions like monsters, machines, distant colonies, and the stories in the collection are also really varied. So you get a little bit of everything. You get like evil toilet head, you get androids, like literal cursed bunnies. The song and the collection are both like really fun. It's also like a wave from the space shuttle before it explodes. Like it's just like very grim and very dark and very bitter sense of humor, laughing your way to disaster.
One of the things I love about your recommendations, and you and I will just have conversations just on our own about interesting short stories, is like you always recommend at least one like fascinating collection that I've never heard of. And I'm always like, this sounds like the greatest thing ever. Why aren't more people reading these stories? And I love that. Whenever I look forward to our shows, because you always do that. You always recommend at least one outstanding short story collection, and I'm here for it.
I love short story collections. Love, like I always thought I was just gonna write stories. Like I never saw myself writing novels. I love the craft of short stories. My favorite, like Amy Hempel is perhaps my favorite writer, and she writes short stories. So, but yeah, I love, like there's, to me, like there's nothing better than a weird little collection of short stories. I'm trying to make sure I get the right name. I think another collection that could be tranquility based as Laura Vandenberg. She writes novels now. I think Stephanie, you recommended one of her novels to me.
The Third Hotel. Yeah.
Yes. She wrote a collection called What the World Will Look Like When All the Water Leaves Us. And the opening story is about a woman who like works at a place where people can have an experience with Bigfoot. Like she dresses up like Bigfoot and people shoot at her. Like not like real guns. Like they shoot. They have this experience. Like like a fantasy for people who like Bigfoot, I guess. And it's like it's to me it's like on like the Mount Rushmore of my favorite short stories, but just like again like a little bit dark, a little bit weird, and a similar vibe to Tranquility Base. If you're here to get weird, then like, and Cursed Bunny might be a little bit too like you might not be able to match Cursed Bunny's freak. Like I think that you should try if you're like, I don't really want to go for Toilet Head. I would say what the world will look like when all the water leaves. I think I'm getting that right. It went off my phone. So by Lauren Vandenberg. Laura Vanden. Again, too much caffeine overload. But both of those collections, I think, if you really love Tranquility Base and you're like, yes, I want to go to the taqueria on the roof, actually 5 stars out of 5, then go for the Cursed Bunny. If you're like,
Listen,
I don't, it's, you know, if Ultra Cheese is too cheesy for you, that's another song on the album, then I would say if your favorite song on the album is Golden Trunks, then go for What the World Will Look Like When the Water Leaves.
I love a rooftop taqueria.
Yeah, it sounds incredible.
It's the song is so funny. I've been singing it in the car. Like I went the long way home from Wegmans so I could be alone in my car. Because Alex Turner does it from like this like, I think this song is from the perspective of like different songs are from the perspective of different like hotel workers, and I think he's got like a lounge singer-esque vibe on this song, and he's like his vocal delivery is like a little bit smarmy, and it's just so fun to sing this song when you're alone. Like I like listen to this song, sing it in the shower, get all the lyrics wrong, and just like really ham it up because we all need to be goofy right now for a little bit of relief. And like it is so like this song is just so much fun, and I just love how like if you were to listen to like like Do I Want to Know and then listen to this song right after, you'd be like, wait, what? I just love it. Like that's the best kind
the
of
range.
I love that artistic whiplash. Like some people want the same thing over and over again and they don't want anything different, and like, you know, they like, you know, mint chocolate chip, and then some people like every time they're like, I'll get the like peach Oreo whatever. Like some people just like want to experiment, and I just like that's the kind of art that I like, that just like takes wild risks. And even if I don't like it, I like, even if I'm like, actually this peach Oreo is fucking disgusting, at least like I've tried it, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Again, I'm on one. Somebody else talk. I'm just gonna shut up now.
Listen, I love this. I love these. I am adding these short story collections to my TBR. Actually, I think I might have added Cursed Bunny a while ago on your recommendation, so I need to finally read it.
It's fun. It's crazy. Did you watch The Substance?
Not yet, no.
Okay. If you watch this, it's like I'm like giving the song to a story read alike and the story to a movie read alike. But
perfect.
Yeah. I like how she opens the collection with that too. Like she opens the collection with like, can you handle the head in the toilet? If not, then put this down. I also love that the opening line of the album of Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino is, I just wanted to be one of the Strokes. Look at the mess. Now look at the mess you made me make. Which I just think is so like, he's so funny. So hot and so funny.
Are we doing chilling obsessions?
We are. Should I start us off?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still deciding.
I posted a meme on my Instagram account a few weeks ago that said, how did we go from Brat Summer to Hitler Winter? And my friend from high school replied and said, baby, that is the plot of Cabaret. And so I said, I guess I need to watch Cabaret. So I did. I went on Tubi and I watched Cabaret, and indeed, she was right. This is about. If you have
Yeah.
not seen the musical, I watched the movie version with Liza Minnelli and Michael York, young Asher.
Young Asher, that's right.
It was funny. I saw him and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he's like a famous British actor. And every time I see him, I'm like Basil from Austin Powers. Um,
Well, I say Tybalt from Romeo and Juliet, because he was 1969 Tybalt.
but it is about this cabaret in the Weimar Republic and kind of this idea of insulating yourself with entertainment and having a good time and ignoring the stuff going on around you or downplaying it until it's too late. And in that case, the fascism is already here. I watched the movie. There was a scene that was so chilling. They are like having a picnic in the park, and like a young boy gets up and starts singing, and he sings alone for a while. And the song is called Tomorrow Belongs to Me. Everyone just stops what they're doing and stares at this boy, and you see like people tearing up, people having like a real heartfelt emotion to like a heartfelt response to this boy singing. And we pan down and see that he has a Nazi armband. This is a Hitler Youth, and this is like nationalism. And people are like hand over their heart, like belting out like grandmas and grandpas with like tears in their eyes, feeling like this surge of like love and patriotism. And I cannot tell you, as someone who grew up in Christian nationalism, how that chilled me to the bone. And the like as they pan through the crowd at this picnic, the only person that is like sitting down is like an old man who is just like looking around like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, it's already here. It's here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Damn, I didn't know that's what Cabaret was about.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because in the movie, yeah, like it's not a musical. Like the characters don't ever like sing as they're going about their day. Like all the song and dance numbers are in the cabaret, and the songs will kind of like make a comment about the things going on. But it is just like everyone has a good time here.
Yeah.
Until at the end, there's like Nazis in the front row, and you're like,
And here we are.
ta-da.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is terrifying, especially when you get children involved, which they are as we speak. I'll go next and drop a bomb. You and I, Stephanie, did an episode many moons ago about cozy horror that was initially received really well. And I think for a lot of people, they still view it really well. But, a handful of people in the horror community made it something that they needed to make a call to arms about without realizing that this has actually been around many, many moons. And I've been thinking about it. There was a guy on Blue Threads, I don't know, about a month ago, that said that he invented the term cozy horror as a joke. And it's always interesting to me when particularly men do this, because he didn't invent the term. It's like literally one of those things that it so in 2014, I was at a writers and editors conference doing a pitch with an editor it was for children's books. And because I was writing a lot of kids stuff back then, and he was totally interested in and he wanted to see more from me. I only didn't follow up just because some things in life happened. Otherwise, I would be probably known right now at this point as a children's horror writer. But I called it adorable horror, not really knowing the term cozy horror. And he goes, "Oh, cozy horror." And I was like, "Okay." And he wanted to see more from me. That was in 2014. And so this guy saying, "I invented this term," like really made me giggle, because no, you didn't. Like he did, because he was saying it was a riff on cozy everything that we were talking about. And so I think it's interesting. And the reason why I'm interested in it right now and I'm obsessed with it right now is because I am a marginalized person living in Texas during the chaos that we're living through right now. So I feel like for my mental health, I want some level of comfort with whatever I read. So I'm reading a lot of cozy fantasy or, spooky rom-coms or cozy horror. And I'm leaning into cozy horror also because I've just always written it. But I was looking back at like Mary Stewart, who I love Thorny Hold. That's from gosh, I mean, that's decades old. If you look at Lolly Willows, like all of that is cozy horror. And Lolly Willows is from the 1920s. Um, so I don't know. I like having a mix right now because it's really fucking hard to get through life. And if I want to have some cozy vibes, like let me have them while I have whatever spooky thing I want in it. So there is something I revisited. Y'all may be interested. And speaking of short stories, there's a kids collection of short stories that I was reading while I was going through all of, writing a lot more kid stuff. Um, but it's called Cabinet of Curiosities, and my friend Catherine Catmull has a lot of stories in it. And there's one by Emma Trevane, who hasn't written anything in like 10 years, and her stories are so good. I really wish she was still writing. But it's called Fairy Cakes, and Fairy Cakes lives in my head rent free. And it's a story about a village, like every first Tuesday of February every year, the village has to make like thousands of fairy cakes, like tiny little cakes, because the fairies come for their cakes. And they all hustle to make all of these little cakes, and they set them up. Well, one year the delivery guy doesn't make it to deliver all the ingredients. And so the parents start panicking and just pulling together whatever they can. They only manage to make like a couple of dozen fairy cakes. And fairy swarms, they hear them. And in Austin, we have like millions of bats, and you can hear them that live under the bridges. And they fly out like in big black clouds that swarm through the sky. And this is what I think about when I think about like these fairies swarming through the sky, because you can start to hear the buzz, and the children are in bed when the fairies come. And of course, the fairies are very angry that they don't have their cakes. And all the parents are murdered. This is children's fic, you guys, but it's cozy horror because it's cakes and it's fairies, but it's also all the parents in the village are murdered because they didn't make enough cakes, and the fairies don't leave any blood or bones left, but the kids are on their own, and they've learned to never like let the fairies go hungry. So as they grow, they've taken that lesson with them. Yeah, because it's this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's an interesting combination to me because of the way she writes it and the way that it's told. And it's called Fairy Cakes, but it's so sinister, and I need this kind of combination for me. I can't dive into the really dark, blood and gore everywhere stuff right now. So
I feel that. I love that. I love the idea that like that's such a great, brilliant concept for a story.
isn't it? Gosh, that and there's a couple of stories I know about with fairy swarms, and I'm sort of obsessed on that whole idea. And I've revisited them lately because I'm just like, I don't know. There's certain visuals that you don't see very often, but I am obsessing with fairy swarms.
My takeaway, my big takeaway from that is we need cake.
Yeah,
I think we need to eat cake. Is what I'm getting. The moral of the story I'm getting is I think I want cake. Like, I think maybe like
well, and don't forget to leave one for the fairies.
Yeah.
they can have some too, but like I think like we really just should probably have some cake today.
I'll get busy.
I like how you're like, I'm gonna bake a cake, and I was like, I'm gonna go to Wegmans. I'm gonna got the
Yeah,
pre-cut. Like, I could go for some carrot cake right now.
maybe some cupcakes. That is my chilling obsession, cozy horror.
My chilling obsession, and I don't know what about this. I'm like trying to figure out what fascinates me so much about it. I talked about it on live the other day, and like a bunch of people left, and I was like, oh no, I've alienated my friends. But like, I'm just gonna be honest about it. I'm really into scammers right now.
Okay.
Really into scammers. And particularly medical
Mhm.
scammers, like the Scamanda podcast, Caitlin's Baby. Somebody recommended Believe in Magic, which was by the same people who did the Missing Crypto Queen, which is a great scam, cryptocurrency scam podcast. I don't know what it is about it that like I just find it so fascinating, and like it's like I think it's interesting because during the first administration, Trump administration, there was a big true crime,
Yeah.
like people became really interested in true crime, and like and then cults, I think. I wonder why. But like
Yeah.
now for me, I'm like, why am I like clicking back into this like dark, like in a way that I wasn't during the Biden administration, where I'm like all of a sudden fascinated by scammers. I'm like, well, I mean, it could be because uh, our president is
Right.
a scammer. So I was like thinking about that, but then medical scams in particular, just because it's like a very to prey on vulnerable people,
Yes.
and then the I think to prey on people's empathy, I think is so sinister, and it just like really fascinates me about like how these people's brains work, and like what is the motivation? Is it just attention, or is it something else? I have so much anxiety, and the fact that people can just scam, like how do you live with that anxiety of like
I
lying
don't
all the
know.
time and like keeping up with your lives? There's a show on Netflix called Apple Cider Vinegar, which is based on a true story about a woman named Belle Gibson who lied about having cancer, and she said that she cured her own cancer holistically. The show is really well done. Caitlin Dever, amazing actress, she plays um, Belle Gibson, and it was just it's I think because it's like fictionalized, because it's like not it's based on a true story, but it's not. I think they're able to kind of like really dig into like what what about it, like it kind of helped me understand my own fascination with it, which is the like social media aspect of it, the like attention, like the currency of attention, and then also the like wellness aspect of it. I think
Yeah.
our healthcare system is so broken,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
I mean, I was just like, I want to go eat cake, but like so much of the food we ingest is just like chemical poison, and I just
You make it at home,
yeah.
it's probably fine.
um just like all of these factors, and like how there's a character in the show who really believes that she gave herself cancer because she stopped taking care of herself,
Mm.
and um, I like all of these things that I think are just background noise, background stressors, or things that I don't really think about enough, and um, it just all kind of manifests in this like big knot of like this interests me because I have feelings about it, I have thoughts about it, I have fears about it that I can't quite parse out, and that's why I'm like attracted to these kind of stories. So that's my chilling obsession, my the fuckery afoot.
Fuckery afoot. Yeah, we have a measles outbreak here in Texas because people won't
Yeah,
vaccinate.
that's
Like,
another thing about like that, and I think
it affects everyone.
the
Yeah.
the like post I was thinking about this the other day, though, like the fact that we as a society haven't processed our trauma from the pandemic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that comes up a lot. Like I hit something and I'm like, oh, this is because we lived through a collective trauma,
Hmm.
medical trauma, and like just we're like, we're vaccinated, cool, and like sort of just like we're
Yeah.
so eager to get out of it that we haven't like sat in the
Mhm.
suck of it and like really thought about it. And so I think that's like another reason why like all of these pieces kind of keep coming to me as I'm like listening to these podcasts and like watching Apple Cider Vinegar, where I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I engaging with this? And then something will click and I'll be like, oh, because of this, this, and this. And um
Have you heard of the podcast called Sawbones?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Sawbones is excellent. And it is a couple, a married couple. The guy is a comedian, so he brings like humor to the table, but the wife is a doctor and she works in a hospital. And so they talk about different medical things, whether historical or current. And they will talk about a lot of this kind of stuff, like medical stuff. I mean, the wellness stuff, like basically dispelling the myths and if it's a historical thing, they'll tell us like, this happened on the Oregon Trail, and you kind of learn about it. And it's funny because he's a comedian and she's also like a super smarty, so, like with who is an actual practicing doctor. So you're getting facts. It will be everything from like CBD oil to, like COVID questions or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's told in a totally accessible way and really engaging. And they have a book and they go on tour and all of this stuff. So if you're interested, you might really like Sawbones because it's also funny.
Yeah, that's a good. I need some like levity
Yeah.
if I'm like actually getting into like medical stuff because I'm very
Yeah.
squeamish. But yeah, I also think like part of it's like I'm just getting older, and so like the reality of like having to take care of yourself in your 30s is different than the reality of taking care of yourself in your 20s, and like
Yeah.
Mhm.
somebody who grew up with disordered eating and like all of these things. Like I just think it's such a like I don't know, it's pressing on a bruise
Yeah.
and just like the worst of humanity. I think trying to understand the motivation behind somebody doing something so cruel during these times where we're watching stupid people and cruel people in charge, like it really makes me like I crave understanding and like
Yeah.
I think to like see like in the case of Belle Gibson, like a young woman who's like around my age do something so, or like Scamanda, where it's like, you know, this could be like a funhouse mirror of my life. Like, why do these people do these things? And, maybe if I can gain some understanding about something cruel, like it's harder for me, like true crime and murders, like that's why I got so into cults for a while because I was like, yeah, I would join a cult. Like, I'm not above it. Like, if someone's like, we're offering you community and like we're all hanging out, it's great. Like, we're finding purpose. I'm like, that sounds lovely. And like the same thing with these medical things where it's like I always feel very eager to help people, but like growing up, I really liked attention. So like, where is the like I can understand why someone would want attention and like this like social media age that we live in. It's just there's like a lot of threads that really pull me in. So that's been my chilling obsession. And I think if like scams interest you, I would recommend apple cider vinegar because I think it's just an interesting look at wellness um, and like social media culture and diet culture, which has sort of become wellness culture.
Very good.
Are we ready to talk about our final girl songs?
I think before we get into our
Oh, yeah,
final
that's
girl songs,
right.
while we're
Okay.
on top, while
Yeah,
I
that's
just like
right.
riffed about um, kind of a negative topic. I don't want to overwhelm people with sadness, but there's a real problem. We all kind of touched on the administration in our chilling obsessions, and I think like it influences everything that we do in terms of like our coping mechanisms, whether it's watching cabaret or apple cider vinegar or getting into the cozier stuff. Agatha, do you want to speak to? I feel like you're more articulate and better equipped to speak on the subject that we wanted to touch on
Yeah.
today.
Um, yeah, so I think it's really important for all of us to try to remember that as we try to find cozy or comfort in things, as we try to, a lot of people are like, my joy is my resistance. And, I certainly understand and support all of that, but we need to remember that this is definitely a privilege, and a lot of people are experiencing a lot more discomfort and they can't escape it. So domestic violence cases are on the rise under our new administration. They just are. And when you go dig around and research and look at data, you'll find that anytime there's any stressful situation, a friend of mine who's a director of a domestic violence shelter, they have women, children, and pets there that are trying to find shelter from domestic violence. She was telling me that anytime there's a Super Bowl game where 50% of the people watching lose and there's a spike in cases. So anytime there's Valentine's Day and they feel pressure to make a grand gesture, there's a spike in cases. So with the stress of this administration where everyone's being fired left and right, benefits are being pulled away from people left and right, there's obviously a spike in cases of domestic violence. So if you or someone you know needs help, I would advise using DuckDuckGo, and you can visit thehotline.org, or you can call 1-800-799-SAFE, which would be 7233. Again, that's 1-800-799-SAFE. And just, I think it's really important that we remember that I think a lot of people are also trying to find purpose. Like, how do I help? They feel helpless. Like, I don't know what to do. The Nazis are taking over and I don't know how to help. What can you don't always have to be seen. I think a lot of people worry that they have to perform their activism, and you don't. You can be quiet and do things and make a difference and help people directly. So if there's a domestic violence shelter in your area, you can always reach out to them and say, what do you need? A lot of times they need things like shampoo, razors, like basic stuff that people need that they don't grab on their way out the door. And just I would always just defer to their expertise and their specific wants and needs. Everybody's kind of doing things differently. There's a lot of common threads, of course, but maybe, based on who your constituents are, you might have different needs. So sometimes maybe you don't have room for animals and some do. Like, what are the needs? So just, if you want to help and reach out to a shelter, I would advise that. If you need help, I've posted on my Instagram that phone number and website. If you also want to take a look at She Wore Black, if you don't remember what that is, I think Stephanie will have it in the show notes. So
I will.
Yep.
Thank you for
Thank you for
speaking
Thank you.
articulately to that, Agatha. We appreciate you sharing the resources.
We all got to do something. Yeah. Thank you for the space to say that too, Stephanie.
Of course.
Final girls.
Yes.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Hit it, Stephanie.
Okay. I know we normally do the band we just talked about, but I'm sorry, Death Cab for Cutie. Just I looked and I looked and I'm like, nothing here is giving me final girl energy. The Sound of Settling is probably their most upbeat song, but that's the theme song to Shrinking. And I don't know, it's just not giving me that at all. I'm currently doing the listen through project with my friends of the 150 greatest albums by women, and I have found so many great songs. We listened to an album today, and the other day we listened to Donna Summer's Disco Queen, perfect disco album, and it was just such a whole vibe, that whole album. But I think I'm gonna go with Bad Girls by Donna Summers.
There you go. Yes.
One of the best songs ever. I love that song. I love Donna Summers. I went through a phase when I was very young, when I was 8 or 9, where I just I was in a play and they played a Donna Summers song, and I that is such a good that is such a good final girl song. Brilliant pick.
Thank you.
And I feel fun, great way to kick off we just talked about heavy stuff, and that's a fun song. And I think taking that little bit of fun for yourself, listen to a bop.
Yeah, it's the best of all bops.
The bop of all the bops.
It's the boppiest. So going back to Blondie's subtle, sinister nature, that's not always so subtle, but this time is a little bit. So I'm picking One Way or Another.
Nice.
And yeah, a lot of people know that, like, one way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you, get you, get you. You know, I think running or trying to escape with this kind of, again, the speed, the pace, the rhythm, with someone saying one way or another, I'm gonna get you. Um, and then if you look at the lyrics, it's very stalky. I'm gonna drive past your house, and if the lights are down, I'll see who's around, and I'm going to meet you. I'm going to do this. And then she starts going, switching it up a little bit. One way or another, I'm going to lose you. I'm going to give you the slip. And I'm going to trick you. And then, get you, all that stuff. But then she also says, I'll walk down the mall, stand over by the wall where I can see it all, find out who you call, lead you to the supermarket checkout, some specials and rat food. Get lost in the crowd. So it's like, it's a little sinister, but I feel like it's a revenge song,
Yeah.
like for someone who's stalking.
Yeah.
But I love how she's like, I'm gonna give you the slip, towards the end. So
That might be the best final girl song of all time.
yeah, she's like, she's switching it up, man.
Yeah.
So,
That is so perfect.
that should be on a final girl t-shirt.
Yeah.
Give you the slip.
My final girl song, again, I feel like maybe it's my like contrarian nature, but like I feel like people complain about the Arctic Monkeys like newest stuff that doesn't sound like their old stuff. And their latest album, The Car, I really love, but again, it's very different. I love the song Sculptures of Anything Goes. It's a very captivating song, very atmospheric. I interpret the lyrics as like a pushback against criticism and them experimenting with their sound. And I think it's like cheeky and rebellious and very rock and roll. And to me, it's just got the vibe. I've like, what's vibe alert? I think I've said vibe maybe twice. I was trying not to say it at all. The vibe of it is like that moment where the final girl like turns to face their killer and says like, okay, come and get me. Like that's kind of the vibe.
No, it's good. Yeah.
That's my final girl song. Sculptures of Anything Goes. Arctic Monkeys.
I think they're gonna make it. Yeah. I think all our girls are gonna make it.
We're all gonna make it. We're all gonna make it.
Thank you guys so much for coming on here and chatting music read-alikes.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I had a great time as always. I love being with my buddies. Thank you so much for inviting us back.
Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Books in the Freezer. If you want to send us an email, you can do so at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode and all previous episodes are at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find a list of the books mentioned, as well as links to the Final Girl song playlist and the Patreon. A little fun news about the Patreon: I started a new series called The House at the End of Fear Street that is available at the Malevolent Spirit level, where I am reading the Fear Street novels and talking about them with very special guests. So I have one episode out as of this recording with Cameron Chaney about the first book, The New Girl, and the next episode, The Surprise Party with Brian McCauley, will be out very soon. So I am very excited about this project. I did not grow up reading Fear Street, and it's been really fun to dive into these. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.